2020 has been a year to remember, or maybe to forget, but I want to share this video with you because here are my 7 reasons why I talk dirty about food. Number one, I don't like liars. And if you're a regular listener to my podcast, you probably don't either. So many of our food companies lie or obfuscate, they hide the truth, and they know it. They manipulate us with marketing campaigns and fancy packaging, and it's just a ruse, and we need to call them out. Number two, food monopolies suck. Food monopolies have exclusive control of a part or a segment of our food supply, and when that exists, food isn't affordable for everyone, and there's less competition, even though it looks like we have a lot of choices. Number three, politics changes the food landscape. Regardless of what you think or regardless of who you vote for, politics has a hand in our food supply, and it shouldn't. In many cases, politicians who create laws and regulations receive financial support and kickbacks from lobbyists and big corporations with special interests whose interests aren't aligned with our interests. Number four, greed is a problem. Ever heard of profits over people? Yeah, it's a real thing, and it's rampant. And we have to follow the money. Companies will always follow profit centers in the market. That's why people start businesses, to make money. But when there's greed, small companies who might actually be making honest food find it harder to compete. Not only that, greed has given us cheap food. Greedy corporations have the benefit of economies of scale, so their cost of goods goes down. And because they can produce more for less, they tend to produce more waste, they break more environmental rules, and that is a cost to us in the end. Number five, we're all just days away from food insecurity. We're all so far away from our food supply. We import food from faraway lands. We rely on big agriculture to feed our families. And our grocery stores can only keep so much food on hand, at one time. So we're literally just a few days away from food insecurity at any given moment. What happens when there's an emergency, or a natural disaster, or a pandemic? Number six, we can't trust food manufacturers nor food imports. When someone lies to you, it breaks the trust, right? There have been so many examples of food manufacturers who breach our trust. Think food recalls and lax standards of production. Think USDA, generally regarded as safe standards for foods, and the additives and preservatives in our food supply. So our food can be shelf stable for months or years. Think fake food like honey, wine, and olive oil. Food is our greatest dependency, and we should be able to trust our food producers, but we can't. Number seven, chemicals don't help us. Ugh, this is the worst. We can and should read our food ingredient labels. Food has a grave impact on our health outcomes, and healthcare costs are a huge burden for many of us, not just financially, but physically and mentally. Millions of people, our loved ones, and even our beloved furry friends die every year from food-related diseases. And if we didn't have glyphosate on our cereal grains like oats and wheat, or atrazine on our corn, or heavy metals in our rice, or all of this crap in our water, messing with our gut microbiome, messing with our brains and nervous systems, our cellular development, our bodies could actually do what they're designed to do. If we had a choice, most of us would choose food that is honest, clean, and is free from political influence, chemicals, and corporate manipulation. Well, guess what? We do have a choice, and that's the good news. Here's what we can do. We can vote with our dollars because money is powerful. It's the benchmark of corporate success. So when there's money to be made or lost, how we vote with our dollars can help keep companies honest. We can reject food companies that are trying to kill us with chemicals, with packaging, with marketing manipulation by purchasing from food companies that show us that they're doing good. Let the market speak. We create the demand, and when we move our money, companies move with the market. You know what else we can do? We can build local food economies. We can support local farmers, local growers, local CSAs, local neighborhood gardens. We can go to farmers markets and look at our local food growers and look them in the eye. And you can ask them questions. You can tell when somebody's lying to you. And if they're lying to you, don't buy from them. Building local food economies builds food resilience. And that's what we need. You know what else we can do? You can be your own food supply chain. How about that? How about we start growing our own food, even if it's just a little bit? We can partner with our neighbors. We can start a victory community garden. We can save seeds. We can share seeds. We need to build local food economies that give us food security. Being our own food supply chains, or at least supporting local producers where we live, we can start doing one little thing to get us back to food equity so that none of us needs to be food insecure. We can also spend more, but buy quality. Food is already expensive. As we know, we've seen a lot of that this year, and in many cases, we know why it is. We know that, it's being funded by lobbyists, right? That makes food really cheap, but at the same time, the costs that we're paying in our health, with our environment, they're huge. They're huge, huge costs. We have become so accustomed to cheap food that is not nutritionally dense, right? We know that people are dying every year from food related diseases. So, eating less cheap food, because that's where all the chemicals and bad gunk is, it's all in the cheap food, right? But eating less of that begins to create demand for good, healthy, clean food. Buying quality food is worth the price. And it's like, buying high octane gas for your car. If you put good gas in your car does better in most cases. If you put good food in your body, then your body will do better in most cases. We can also start leveling the playing field. We can and should take each and every one of our elected officials, both locally and nationally, that has received or is receiving money from corporate donors with special interests in our food supply chain. We need to take them to task. We can talk to local elected officials and demand accountability, or at least support an organization that does the work so we can begin to trust our food supply chain again. And lastly, we need to stay informed. We don't know what we don't know, but when we do know what companies are putting into and onto our food, we can make better choices for our families. When we're empowered with science, facts, and well researched information, we can shift our dirty food supply to a cleaner food supply, and that is good news. So I don't know about you, but I'm going to keep talking dirty, and I hope you join me this season as we go into season 4. And I'm going to keep doing it until these food companies and food producers stop giving me something to talk about. Because no one really wants expensive food that's ultimately trying to kill them and our ecosystem. Am I right? So listen in to the Food Slaying podcast on foodslaying.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and now on Amazon Radio. And remember, always, to eat clean, eat healthy, and this winter, boost your immunity with real nutrient-dense food. And I'll see you on the other side of the plate. Ciao.